All right, let's do this. Let's start this thing. All right, Underground Podcast. We are here today with a non-magazine guest, but a very special guest, Mikey Netka.
Hello.
How you doing today, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
So you are the lead singer, right?
Yeah.
Of Strange Case.
Yep.
Now, for people who don't know what Strange Case is, what is it?
Strange Case is a band. The genre we've coined the name for is surf and turf.
What does that mean?
It's kind of mixture of like jazzy, kind of reverberated guitars and catchy melodies. Good music.
And so it started out of the 805, right?
Yep.
You are one of the original members, right?
Yeah, I started the band actually.
You started the band.
With Zane, our guitar player.
And you guys both went to Newbury.
Yep. Both in the Sequoia Middle School together.
Like, I was looking at the gram, and I saw photos of you guys, like, as really young kids, right?
Yeah.
Like babies.
Yeah, we not babies, but I think we met in 6th grade, and then one day I just invited him to Mammoth with me and my family, and we were best friends since then.
The classic Mammoth invite.
Yeah.
With the family. That'll
totally
do it. Lifelong friends after that.
It's true. It's true.
Okay, so you guys are probably the first, like, real band that is really part of Underground that I've ever really interviewed and stuff. Most of what I've done has always been hip-hop.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, like, super refreshing to just, like, hear you guys. Like, after we talked and you said you're down to come on, I started listening back to stuff. And, like, I've heard Superfly before.
Sweet.
That's definitely something I've just, like, heard.
Yeah.
Whether it's through social media or whether I looked it up. And then I started listening to a bunch of your guys' stuff, and it's just like such a clean, nice, refreshing sound.
Thank you.
How did you, like, how long did it take for you guys to find the sound and this kind of momentum that you seem to be on right now?
Oh, man. When we first started, it was like we played totally different genre. It was like ska punk music, which is just what most bands play, I feel like, when they start a band for the first time. And then, I don't know when we really made the change. I guess it was kind of just influences from other bands we liked. We didn't really listen to that kind of music, so there was no real need for us to make that kind of music. So we started finding, like, Mac DeMarco blew up and, like, the Growlers and bands like that. And then I started listening to Cage the Elephant a lot, and I was just obsessed with them. So, and then I really got into the Beatles, and that's kind of when everything changed. We started learning, like, different chords and figuring out there's way more ways to make songs than just 4-chord, like, ska music. So I'd say, like, honestly, the last couple of years is when we really found our sound that we were going for. So, yeah.
And so, a little throwback. In 2016,
yeah,
my first ever endeavor into music journalism, when I was at Moore Park College in a journalism class, I had to do some music-related interview article. So I hit you up and we were just looking at it, and you were saying, like, oh, the band is totally different, like, none of those instruments are still in use.
Yeah.
And some of the people have changed, right?
Yeah.
So what is, like, who are the current members, and how did those people form, and, like, what is the current state of Strange Case right now?
Right now it's me, Zane, Andrew, our bass player, and then Finn, our drummer. So, like, 7 or 8 months ago, I kind of had a feeling things were a little on the rocks with some of the members. We're all good now. We never really had beef. I just could tell differences and creatively. So our bass player, our old bass player, who I live with right now, he just called me one day and was like, I don't want to be in a band. I guess he wanted to just focus on school and a career and stuff like that. So he left. And then about a month later, our drummer quit because his band, he was in another band, and they got signed. So he wasn't allowed to be in both bands. So we were like, well, shit, like, what do we do now? So that was just
you and Zane.
It was just me and Zane. We were like a duo for a good 3 or 4 months, pretty much.
Did you make music and release music at that time?
Yeah, so Superfly is actually just me and Zane. The drums are programmed. We did all the instruments ourselves, and but luckily it happened during the pandemic because if we had shows going on, we would have been screwed, like, because we had shows booked every single weekend. So if we lost 2 members, we would be done for, pretty much. But we kind of knew what bass player was going to take Shane's spot from the beginning. He had filled in before. And funny story, he actually works, me and Zane work at Valsurf in Thousand Oaks, and then our bass player works at Valsurf in Woodland Hills. So
Okay,
3 of us
gotcha.
work at the same place, which is pretty cool. So we asked him, he was down. And then for a drummer, we were like, I don't know any other drummers really.
I feel like that's the hardest instrument to fill.
Yeah, so we just made a flyer, drummer wanted, on our Instagram, and we had a bunch of people send in auditions, and then this kid pops up. I was like, oh, he looks kind of familiar. I think he comes into Valsurf sometimes. And he starts talking. He's got a British accent. I was like, well, that's cool. I like that. And then he just laid down the like grooviest beat I've ever heard. So I was like, that's our drummer right there. And then we jammed with him. Obviously, we had to get along with him, but he was just super cool. So we pretty much told him that day that he was in the band. And apparently he's been coming to our shows for a couple of years, and he was super stoked. So now we got the full band again.
And
Thank
so
goodness.
when you like get somebody new into the band, like, is there like contracts involved? Like, what is like?
No.
Is there an official initiation kind of process?
At our size, I feel like if we ever get big, they're going to be considered like original members just because of the size we're at right now. We're not huge. So if we ever like get a mass amount of listeners, they're just going to know them as the members. So we don't have any contracts or anything. We do have kind of like a distribution deal with the label. So I'm pretty sure they had to sign that just for the band's sake, but money-wise. But other than that, it's pretty easy. We're just like, you're in, and they're like, cool.
And so in 2016, when I interviewed you,
Yeah.
there was something about like a distribution deal with a label. I'm pretty sure.
Same one, yeah.
Same one, same
Yeah.
thing. So what is that exactly? What is a distribution deal?
Zane had lived with this guy for a long time. His name's Kevin Zinger. He owns Regime Management Group, music group, and he owns this company called SRH. It's like an old 90s company, clothing company. And he managed like Offspring and Sugar Ray and bands like that back in the 90s. And Zane's just known him forever, so kind of like a dad to Zane. And then he just helps us out because he still does music stuff, but not really in our scene. It's still kind of like the 90s punk bands and stuff like that. But he's got all this nice like distribution stuff to help us get our music out there and like playlisted and things like that. So he just does it as a favor. He just puts our music out for us, which is super helpful because he knows a bunch of people in the industry. So that's how we got that.
And I mean, it seems like it's working because like your guys' like Spotify streams is like better than most people.
Yeah, so our biggest song on Spotify, 27 Club, one day he texted Zane and was like, hey, do you know who Kat Corbett is? And I was like, sounds familiar. And it turns out she runs this show on K-Rock called Locals Only, and he's like really good friends with her. So one day he texts us and just goes, your song's gonna be on K-Rock. And I was like, K-Rock? Like, that's like the biggest freaking radio station. So dude, it was crazy. We went to the top of a parking garage at the mall at the Oaks. We just opened all the doors of my car, like blasted the radio when it was playing. And so I think that helped a lot with that song specifically, just because it has so many more streams than all of our other ones. But yeah, he's definitely helped us, definitely given us a little boost. So it was awesome.
Something that is kind of just interesting to me is like I was saying, most of what I do is like hip hop artists, rappers from the 805, and a lot of like rappers from just any kind of underground hip hop artist has like a polarizing sound. Like it's either you love it, you hate it type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like your guys' music is just like objectively good and easy to listen to.
Thank you.
And chill.
Appreciate it.
What kind of like feedback have you guys gotten in like 2020 with Superfly, and when did 27 Club come out?
27 Club was last year as well. So kind of, I think early January, I want to say. But the problem with that song is that was another one that was programmed drums and stuff like that. So
It's technically like a sample.
Yeah, because we didn't have a drummer really, so we didn't know how to play it live. It just sounded bad because like it sounds so good in the recording, but we can't emulate it with real drums and stuff like that. But luckily, our new drummer is like a genius. He figured out live backing tracks, and he's got this whole rig next to him when we play now. So just clicks a button. He's got a click in his ear, and we just follow along. And he's got like all this stuff coming out of the speaker that just helps it sound like really good. So that was like a super added bonus for him in the band. But yeah, I think 27 Club came out early January, and then our bass player, when he left, we released one of his songs called Healthy, and he wrote it and sang the whole thing. But so when he quit, I was like, what do you want to do with that song? He's like, you guys can still release it if you want. I was like, down, because I love that song. And then I think Superfly was after that, and that's our last, pretty much all we did last year.
That's what I noticed is like 3 songs in 2020,
Yeah.
but there are 3 solid songs.
Yeah, we really took time on them just because it was me and Zane, so we could hang out every night and just figure out exactly what we wanted them to sound like. So I think Superfly is kind of the direction we're going now. It's more kind of groovy, little more hip-hoppy.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely different sounding than our album that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And so you were saying to me a little bit that you think you're moving more towards like a hip hop sound.
Yeah.
How does that like make sense with like guitar, drums? Like why do you say hip hop sound?
So I think it's just the drumming aspect of it. It's a little more like dancier, I guess. A little more groovy. So if you listen to some of our old stuff, it's kind of just like indie rock. But now it's kind of more I think it just has a little bit more of a groove to it, and it just sounds like, I don't know. We don't rap or anything, but I think it's more that R&B kind of direction, which I like.
Do you think that that you could rap? Like, have you ever tried rapping?
I have the worst rapping voice on the planet, so Zane's pretty good at it. He's got a good voice for it, but I don't think I personally could. I've tried it. It's not good.
So did you ever have like vocal lessons or something? Because like you have a nice voice, like a great singing voice.
Yeah.
How did it form?
I didn't start singing till junior year of high school. I was going to do the talent show with some of my friends, and I was supposed to play drums because I played drums originally. And I guess I just didn't like the song we were doing. So one day I kind of just threw out there, like, well, what if I sang, And we did an Ed Sheeran song. So I sang it, and then we ended up winning the talent show. So we got to play at the rally, and I was like, I should just start a band. But yeah, no, I've never taken lessons. It's just kind of, my brother sings in a choir, and he does it like, they travel like New Zealand and do stuff like that. So I always had a feeling maybe I could sing because I've always played guitar and played instruments, but I never really tried it until then. And yeah, I've just been, looking back at it, I'm like, I was good. I was okay for never taking a lesson. But now that I practice like every single day, it's definitely noticed the difference. It's pretty crazy. You don't think you could train your voice to be better, but like just doing it every day makes such a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think that, like, I really just, like I said again, I don't know much about the rock, alternative, the surf and turf world of the 805 rap or 805 music scene.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of bands like you guys out here?
Dude, so many. They're just hidden gems, though. Like, you don't even know they exist. I mean, honestly, being from this area, it's pretty tough to, like, get your name out there because there's not a lot of big artists or big things around here. So I respect, like, every artist that's doing their thing in this area because it's almost impossible, like, if we didn't have social media, I don't know if bands would ever even be heard of from around here. But so I'm just stoked we even have a little bit of a following because there's a lot of bands out here, and it really is how much you put into it too. Because if you just start a band, like I've had other bands, we just do it for fun, but you're never gonna go anywhere with that. You really have to do it like a job, like every day, or else it's not gonna work out.
And is that what you is that the state of Strange Case right now? Is it you guys are really working on this hard every day?
It's I consider it a second job just because I noticed when we jam so much, people will ask, like, you guys must jam a lot because you're all really tight together. So that's like the best compliment ever, because we jam as much as we can. Now it's a lot harder that we don't have a studio anymore, because our old drummer had the studio in his house, so we could go there every single day. But literally, we jam probably every single night just so we could be as tight as possible together.
So like it must be kind of a weird dynamic to have like a musical push that involves multiple people. Most rappers, it's just one thing. They might have a producer that they work tight with, whatever. But how is the vibe between you guys? I mean, now it's kind of a new squad.
So it's mostly, I want to say most of it's me and Zane. Like right now, technically me and Zane can be considered strange case. I mean, our members are in the band, and we haven't known them long enough, so it's kind of like me and Zane are always together because we work together and we hang out like every day. So I kind of feel bad because a lot of our Instagram posts are just me and Zane. But we do pretty much most of the writing, and then we'll just hit up the guys like, let's jam this day. We go in and we're like, here's something new we're working on. And then they kind of give their input. But they're both super good musicians, so they give their input, and it's like when you're all jamming together, it's cool and all just be me and Zane, but getting other input from the other members is like, they'll say something, I'm like, oh, that's sick. Like, how did we not think of that before? So it's actually really good. I'm glad none of us really have any big differences musically. We all kind of are on the same page. So our new members are definitely a good fit for me and Zane, I'd say.
That's awesome. And do you guys like hang out outside of doing music stuff, like all four of you guys ever?
Yeah, so we all go surfing together, and it's tough because I live here in Oxnard, Zane's in Camarillo, and then our drummer's in Agora, and then our bassist is in Woodland Hills, so it's like we're all spread out pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So we try to as much as we can, but it's a little tough, just because the driving, I'm like 45 minutes from our bass player, but he's like 10 minutes from our drummer, so
something that was really impressive about you guys was I like your guys' music videos a lot. Like I've seen the Superfly video, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was shot super dope. Like who shot that and where was that shot at?
That was made by a kid named Ryan Galvez, who, shout out to him. That video looks so good, and he literally just him and his assistant came one camera. He planned the whole thing himself, and it was like a couple hours maybe, did the whole thing. So I think that was in like, it was off Canaan somewhere in Malibu area.
That's what I thought, somewhere like in the Malibu area.
Yeah. But yeah, that was awesome. And then we actually just recorded a new video that should be coming out pretty soon. But that one was a lot more like, there was a whole crew and all this stuff. And he had like this kid we met, that was through our bass player. He was like, oh, I know this guy makes videos. We're like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then we show up there, and the kid's like, get there at 6 a.m. And we did it in Zane's living room. And I show up at 6 a.m., and he's got this whole set built inside his living room. Like, I'm supposed to be like a crazy dude, so I have all these newspapers on the wall, and I'm like connecting things.
I saw this on Instagram.
You saw that, yeah. So I showed up, he's got catering in the backyard, like coffee and donuts and all this stuff. I was like, this is like a real video. So that should be coming out pretty soon. So hopefully that holds people over while we figure out what music we're going to release, because it's taking us a while right now. But
yeah, so it's been like, so Superfly is the last release, right?
Yeah.
And what month was that?
I don't know. March, April.
It was a while ago, almost a year ago, right?
Something like that. I think so. But that one, we had it done actually when our old drummer was in the band. We did it in his house, in his studio. And then when he quit, we were kind of, for a month, like, this is pointless. So we didn't really work on anything. And it took us a while to get it out. But once we released it, we were like, yeah, this is it.
This is the one. So what can people expect? You said you had that music video that should be coming out soon. Do you guys have a catalog of music that you're ready to put out?
We have like just files and files of songs that we've made and demos and stuff we're working on. So now we're kind of in the state where we have to decide what the next single is going to be. So I think Superfly, we've officially decided, is going to be the first single on our album that we're going to release. So we'll probably do a couple more and then do an album. But
when
it's
can people
coming,
expect
yeah.
that? Like, do you have an estimated month that this album will be out?
I have no idea. Hopefully, it'll definitely be this year. That's for sure. But I have no clue what month yet. Still working out the details.
And so when you're saying, like, we need to decide, is it really you and Zane who are the ones making decisions like that?
So what we did recently, we made a list of our favorite ones. And then, because we like them all, but we can't really release all of them. So we basically made a list of our favorite ones, and then we bring them to the other guys and ask them what their favorites are. So I think we do have our next song picked. And that should be coming out super soon, yeah.
I want that out, man, for real.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
I've been getting big into you guys in the last week,
Sweet.
for real, and I'm excited for you guys to do some stuff.
Yeah, that should be out fairly soon. So
something else, kind of the last thing I want to talk about is like shows.
Yeah,
you guys were doing a lot of shows back in 2016 when I was interviewing you. Like that classic A sports bar photo.
Yeah.
Like I remember there's something like it was like Whiskey Go-Go,
yeah.
right? In West Hollywood, you guys performed
at.
Were you guys doing shows, like keeping that consistency all the way up to COVID?
We had shows every single weekend. Even, I think we played a show like early March. That's how close we got, because we just had every weekend booked up. And then I remember we had a show booked in Slow. So we drove up to Slow, but it was kind of, COVID was starting. Masks weren't a thing yet, though. And nothing was really shut down, but everyone knew it was here. And we were all halfway to Slow, just like, we should turn around. Like, I don't know if we should be playing. But I'm glad we did it. It was one last show. We played it. It wasn't a huge one. So everyone just kind of stood separated.
No COVID?
Yeah, there was no COVID there. There was like, it was when people were like, oh, there's 200 cases in LA. It was like that kind of thing. So it wasn't really a big breakout yet at that time. But yeah, that was the last time we ever played. I think that was in like March 1st or like something super early March.
Like we had a similar situation. Like we did a show for Underground Friday, March 13th.
Jeez.
So it was like right on the cutoff, like, but it was like still close enough, or I don't know, it was still fine, like to where we were able to do it. But yeah, it was like, oh my God, like 6 cases in Ventura County.
Like, what if you're it's doubling every day? Yeah. So
it's crazy. So what are you looking forward to show wise when we can get back to it? Like, do you guys have, like, what's probably gonna be the first move? Do you have some places, some venues you can hit up?
I think what we're gonna do, just to get things rolling, you can always count on Isla Vista house shows to have a big crowd. So we played there a lot. We had a bunch of houses that would always invite us to play, and you'd get there at like 7. There's no one there. You just set up, and then we just skate around Isla Vista, come back, and it was just, that place is crazy. People just appear in the garage, and it was always just slam packed. But we had shows booked in like San Francisco and stuff like that, which we've never played before. So I was super looking forward to that. I hope we can get those shows back once this is over. But I'm ready to start traveling a little further for shows when this is over, for sure.
Hell yeah! Well, I hope that you guys like time it right with some drops, with a project, hopefully, and do like would you want to do some sort of tour? Like, have you ever done that before? Like drop a project, go on tour for it?
Sorta. We dropped our album and went like Santa Barbara, Slow, up sort of San Francisco area, but it was kind of just a random bar like near San Francisco. So, but honestly, I'm excited to see, because I think when we started the pandemic, it was like 2,000 monthly listeners, and now we're at like 15,000 on Spotify. So I think we've gotten a lot bigger during this, just because so many people are on their phones, and we've just been promoting it a little bit heavier online. So I'm excited to see if that's affected the turnout or not. But
yeah, for real. Well, I'd love to have you at one of our underground shows.
Dude.
We've had like one band perform before.
I'll play anything.
Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah, hit me up.
All right, well, I appreciate you coming through, bro. This was great. I'm glad to meet up. Like I said, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if we had even met in person before, but we had to have just ran into each other in high school or something. Definitely. Well, thank you, bro.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, man, for real.
I appreciate it.
All right, Underground Podcast, Andrew Mason. here with Mikey Netka.